let's talk about how to cover a shield. So the things that you need: sewing machine, and then I usually pick up one of these packs of Waverly cotton. You can use the poly cotton or cotton at Walmart, or you can cut your own custom fabric. Things to keep in mind is it needs to be opaque, so you need to not be able to see through it, and it needs to not be abrasive, so like if it has sparkles in it, you don't want the sparkles to be able to cut people. The other thing you need is paracord, and I usually pick up these super cheap bundles of paracord at Dollar Tree. You get 25 feet for $1.25, which is great when you don't really care about the quality of the paracord. I wouldn't use these for weaving, they're super uneven, but they're great for drawstring. To cut out your fabric, something to keep in mind is if you're doing anything bigger than a medium, you're probably going to have to get the bigger fabric, like a 60-inch wide fabric. So you want to add 2 inches to your measurement for the paracord channel, 2 inches so that the fabric overlaps onto this side, and then you want to add the width of your plank. So this plank is 2 inches, so I would add 2 inches, 2 inches, and then 2 inches for my channel, so I would add 6 inches. So this thing is about 28 inches wide, so adding 12 inches to that would be 40 inches wide, so I am just barely making it inside of this. When I do max medium shield rounds, they just barely fit in a 42 or a 44 inch fabric. So keep that in mind if you're doing anything bigger than a max medium, that you need to do your math before you buy your fabric. So what I've done here is I folded my fabric in half, laid my plank on it, and then I measured out 6 inches all the way around, and then cut. And you can blunt off a little bit of the corners. I usually do that later. Measure very, very carefully. If you cut too little, you're gonna have to sew on more fabric. But if you cut too much, you can seam rip and do more later. For your paracord, what I've done here, it's kind of hard to see, is I laid it all the way around the perimeter of the shield. And then I'm going to leave enough slack here that I can tie a knot, because you want enough paracord that you can put the cover over the blank. I've seen lots of people put too little paracord, and then when they try to put it over the blank, paracord pulls through, and then they have to go fishing for paracord. I've gone over in another video how to finish your paracord, so we're going to pull the white out just a little bit. Snip. Let the paracord relax. I usually work with some pliers and a lighter. So melt your end. And then very quickly clamp with some pliers. So I'm going to do that again. Grab your end. Pull. Snip the white out. Relax the paracord. Okay. So for a heater, I usually try to put the tie at the top. So if you grab your fabric, the top here, where the fold is, I usually take a safety pin, put a little bit of slack in the paracord, put the safety pin through the paracord, and then pin it to where I'm going to start sewing. And that will keep it from pulling through as I work. As far as sewing machine settings, we're just working with a straight stitch, usually a length of between 2 and 3, width of 0. I'm just working with black, you can color match. And then just a all-purpose needle, normal foot. So if you see, I've put the safety pin in the middle of the top. So what we're going to be doing is folding your fabric over, and then the presser foot, the right side, is going to go along your paracord, and then you want to try to match this edge with the left side of your foot. So like I said, we're folding the fabric over and matching up the right side of your presser foot to where the lump is, where the paracord is, and then the left side with the edge of your fabric that you've rolled over. And we're going to try to go as straight as possible. And go slow. You don't want to sew through your paracord. You gotta turn the machine on. And then you want to do a couple of back stitches. What I'm doing is just rolling it and straightening it out before it gets to the presser foot gets to. Straighten out your paracord. Don't worry about creases or wrinkles, especially if you're doing a curve. You're going to get some folds in your fabric. For corners, you take my paracord and pull it off 90 degrees. Just going to take the corner, fold once, and then when I get back around, I'm going to fold again. So it's basically a 45 I'm doing a 90 degree turn, so I'm going to do a 45 degree fold and then another 45 degree fold. So I'm just holding this with my fingers. We're going to sew into the fold, and then we're going to raise the presser foot and change directions. Make sure you're holding your paracord all the way to the back of this channel so you don't sew over it in the corner. It's sticking out a little bit for me. Try to move my hand so you can see. So make sure your needle is down in the fold you just folded. Lift your presser foot. We're going to do one more 45 degree fold. Shift everything 90 degrees. Foot back down. And then keep sewing. I wanted to give you a closer look of the corners. So it is a 45 degree fold here, and then another 45 degree fold, and you just sew through the corner without making sure that you don't sew through your paracord. And then something you can do occasionally to make sure that you didn't sew through your paracord is just brace the back of your fabric, make sure that your needle is down so you don't move your fabric, and just pull and make sure that your paracord is feeding through your channel. You will feel it if you sewed through it, it'll just suddenly stick. This is just another straight side. So make sure that your paracord stays all the way to the right. Needle down when you're doing any sort of adjustments so that you don't move your fabric. So we're going to start a little bit of a curve towards the bottom of the heater. This is where you're going to get little wrinkles that you sew over. So just stop a lot and make sure you adjust. See that we're starting to get a little bit of a pop-up of a wrinkle. That's probably going to be a wrinkle when I sew over it. And you don't want too much of this edge to be to the left of your presser foot, because that's when you start removing too much fabric and then your cover doesn't fit. Going to start getting a little bit more of the curve. We're getting close to the point. So when we get to this point at the bottom of the shield, it's a little bit less than a 90 degree angle, so we're going to do another fold and then sew until you put your needle in the fold. Raise, fold again, change directions, put down, sew. And then fix all this to make sure that you're going straight now. If you do end up sewing through your paracord, you're going to need to seam rip that section and then just resew it. You don't need to seam rip the whole thing, just where you sewed through the paracord, and then hit it again to make sure that your stitches don't pull out. All of this will be the inside of your cover, so you don't need to worry about making it pretty. We are approaching the last corner. And look, we found the end of our paracord. So we're going to have to pull through a bunch of it. So make sure your needle is down so your fabric doesn't move. I like to brace the back of it and then start pulling through. And now I have a bunch extra. We're approaching the corner. Turn your paracord 90 degrees. 45-degree fold. Sew until your needle is in the fold. Needle down. Press a foot up. One more 45-degree fold. Shift the direction of your fabric. Press a foot down, and then keep sewing. What I like to do when I start getting towards the end is just do a little knot right here, and then I tell people to leave this knot in until the shield cover is on the shield. First thing people do when they get these in their hands is take this knot apart, and then when they try to put the cover on the shield, the paracord pulls through. And then take your pin out of the fabric so you don't accidentally sew through it. We are going to pull this to the right and just keep sewing. And then we are basically to the end. I'm going to take this and lay it to the right and hold it. Let's see if I can turn this so you can see. Lay it to the right and hold it, and then we are going to sew off the seam and then back on the seam over here. Straight across to where you started. And then we're going to back stitch and forward stitch to lock it in. And then you're done. I'll show this to you so you can see a little bit better. So we went off the fold, down this way, underneath the paracord, and on to where we started. You can, if you want to, sew all the way across and then put like buttonholes in this. That's a lot of extra work. I wouldn't recommend it. This is the easy, quick and dirty way. You also don't want to cut all the way across and then just put slits, because those slits will start to tear through. I've seen a lot of my earlier work where I put slits in it have torn in half. The slit pulls forward to the front and then it fails. What I will do to get it on is I've just laid my blank on top of my cover with the raw edge of the seam facing the blank facing up, and then I've done a little, I don't actually know the name of this knot, just a little crisscross knot that you do before you tie your shoes. And then what I do, the crisscross knot will keep stress away from your seams so that you don't rip your seams as you're doing this. Put a foot in the middle of it and just pull up and adjust as you tighten. There, you've got a shield cover.
tie a bajillion knots in this extra paracord, and do not cut the extra paracord, because then you won't be able to take your cover on and off and wash it. That's also something I see people do immediately, is they cut the paracord and tie a nice little neat knot, and then when they take the cover off to wash it or clean it or swap it out, they have to fish the paracord back through the fabric.